Broadcasting in Dolby Stereo from the abandoned Long John Silver's behind the abandoned Pizza Hut on Center Avenue, it's Everything, Anything, and Nothing Really with your hosts Eric Walensky and Matthew Maynard. Hey folks, how's it going? I'm Eric.
I'm Matt.
And Matt, we're back.
We are. It's been a while. Long time.
It has been a minute for sure.
Well, it's been quite a few more than those.
I'm not going to do the math on it, but 3 years and 3 months, roughly.
Something like that. Yeah, it was 2017 the last time we got together for one of these podcasts, and everybody always asks, what happened? Why did you stop doing the podcast? And I just say, life got in the way. Eric got busy doing other things. I got busy doing other things, and we just both agreed, if it ever got to a point where life slowed down and maybe there was a global pandemic where we were confined to our houses, maybe we'd come back.
Exactly.
And so here we are.
If all the bars in the world closed down, yeah, we'd consider doing a podcast again.
Yeah, so that's kind of what happened. And so here we are. So
yeah,
you can thank your government officials for locking us in the house.
Because here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Did you use your pandemic time? Your pandemic time 3 years,
time. That sounds pandemic time sounds like a time zone that just didn't catch on. It's like there's Eastern time, Central time, pandemic time. That's Nebraska only or something.
Pandemic time was going to combine Mountain and Pacific, and
yeah.
we're going to go to 3 time zones, but we didn't. Pandemic time just did not catch on.
No, nobody wanted to be in that time zone, so.
No, I meant to say, did you use your hiatus time wisely, this 3 years, 3 months gap?
Well, you know me. I'm a stage actor. I've been busy with theater. I've been doing some very prestigious shows, mainly because of my bald head. I was cast in a one-man show called The Retirement Years of Dwight D. Eisenhower, and it's mostly and it was not a well-formed production. I mean, the playwright kind of told me to wing it a little bit, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know how President Eisenhower talked, so a lot of it was me sitting in an easy chair yelling, "Mamie, are you home?" And then sitting.
For those of you who remember Eisenhower's wife.
And then sometimes I just sit there and look at the audience and say, "Boy, I sure won the war in Europe."
Well,
once in a while I'd yell, "Fala, are you around? Oh wait, that's Roosevelt's dog. Mamie, what's our dog's name?"
It's a shame the pandemic shut this down.
Well, actually, this was a while ago.
See, I was going to climb Mount Everest.
Oh, yeah?
But too many people are doing it now, and it's a fad.
Yeah.
People are dying in line at the top of Everest to have their picture taken.
Yeah, that kind of puts a damper on the whole going out and adventuring thing,
It sort of does. When did the top of Mount Everest become a theme park,
Yeah.
There's not enough things to do on this planet that there's a line to get to the top of Everest. If you ever thought, what's the last thing on this planet I'm going to do? You might as well make it climb Mount Everest because there's a line and you're going to wait. So I did that, and I didn't do that. I thought about doing that, and then I actually started doing a little bit of stand-up comedy in the hiatus.
Oh yes, I was at one of your shows.
Yes, you're actually at 2 of my shows.
Or maybe was it 2?
It was 2. See, I keep track of these things. I'm like Santa Claus. Yeah.
You remember everyone that's in your audiences.
I do. And I remember who's naughty and nice.
Did I laugh? I don't remember.
A couple times you did.
I think there were a lot of things because in your stand-up, you go into some personal things. And sometimes I just sit there and go, well, I didn't know that. So.
It is a little unsettling for some people.
Yeah.
Because, I've told a couple of marriage jokes, and people are like, "Ooh, I I didn't need to hear that. That's
All eyes are on your wife when you start going into that.
yeah, that's. But then that sort of makes it fun for me later on. It's like, what'd you think? It's like, ooh, I didn't need to be here for that joke. But yeah, so now we got maybe climbing Mount Everest and a comedy career and Eisenhower out of our system.
Yeah.
And now there's just no choice but to get back to this podcast. Our listeners might have recognized that we have a new theme coming back to this podcast. It's a little song called Tell Me Why by my cousin Steve Bow. He was in a band called 8-Track Elvis. And on this particular track, he does all the singing, all the guitar, all the keyboard. He only had a friend of his lay down the drum track.
And the song is available on 8-Track.
It is. Aptly named. But no, I want to thank Steve for letting us use that. And if you're ever in the Cincinnati, Ohio area, he's still in a band called Timestamp. And they play a lot of really good 80s and 90s music. It's a good time. Liz and I were down there last fall. We actually went to Lebanon, Ohio at a Oktoberfest to see him play. It was a good time.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We got dragged into this members only. I don't know if it was a VFW hall or some kind of local hall where you had to be a member, like an Eagles club or something. And they started playing this dice game in the back. And this guy who looked like a 6'6" boss hog, wearing like this big old cowboy hat and the jacket, and you know, he saw me kind of eyeing him up playing the dice game, and he's like, "You want to play some dice?" I was like, "Sure. I don't know how to play. It's easy. Just put your money down." and you know how many bad situations start with, "It's easy. Just put your money down."
Yeah.
Well, that's how this started. But it really was easy, and I only ended up losing about $4, so the damage was minimal on that. But it was just a nice, fun time. Like I said, a little surreal. I'm in the back gambling hall with Giant Boss Hogg.
And Giant Boss Hogg went home that night. He's like, "I got a sucker, Ma. $4. $4. So, for people who may not remember our podcast, may have never listened to our podcast before, and you're wondering, what is this podcast about? That's the thing. We've never really been able to narrow it down. And I know that's the first rule of a successful podcast. We're very well aware of that. But we just talk about, as the title says, everything, anything, and nothing, really, and just talk.
Nothing, really.
Yeah.
That's a different emphasis than I put on it, but I guess you could stammer your way through it that way. What's your podcast about? Well, everything, anything, and nothing, really. I mean,
we tried to narrow it down several times. I mean, because, you listen to podcasts, and there are such specific podcasts. I mean, there are things about 19th century crime. There are things about papal history. There are things about ice fishing in Minnesota. We were going to do one about Geppetto and Pinocchio, and in 22 episodes explore, is Geppetto really creepy?
And the only reason we didn't, it's just, I didn't know if we could go 22 episodes with that, because right around episode 3 or 4 is when you're pretty much like, yeah, he kind of is.
I'd never had a son. Let's get some wood.
I mean, exactly. If that fairy wouldn't have come around and animated Pinocchio, that movie's it's pretty short. It's just like you as Eisenhower.
Mamie, you got any wood around?
Exactly. Maybe.
But yeah, if somebody in your neighborhood started making something out of wood and said this was his son, You wouldn't stick around. You wouldn't stick around to see how that story was going to end.
Yeah, that's the end of the friendship right there. Well, we were going to try and stretch the topic by talking about other puppeteers and their puppets, like Willie Tyler and Lester. What's the deal with those guys?
You know, Willie Tyler and Lester just made a coronavirus video not long ago.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was on Facebook, and it was the two of them. It looks like they're Skyping each other.
Okay.
They're like on a split screen, and so they're like doing like a public service announcement where Willie's saying, when you go to the toilet, and then Lester, wash your hands. When you pet a dog, wash your hands. You know, and they just, this whole litany of things. Wash your hands. So, yes, Willie Tyler and Lester have been the voices of reason that have kept us healthy during this trying time.
Another topic we were going to explore, but it was kind of hard to do through the medium audio, was interesting graffiti that we've seen.
Yeah, we were going to like under bridges and overpasses and stuff, and trying to describe into a microphone what we were seeing, and all you could hear was as cars were going by, and it really was not as entertaining as we thought it was going to be. We had this entirely other vision for it.
Some of the better graffiti I've ever seen in my life, though, and of course you remember this from the Carlton Bar. In beautiful Carlton, Michigan. Sand equals $, dirt equals question mark. I saw that graffiti somewhere 1996, 1997, and that has stuck with me all of these years.
Yes, I remember some graffiti from that bar as well. There was one that somebody had written, "Life is not a dress rehearsal," and somebody else wrote below it, "I know!"
That one slayed me too.
And that is not your typical dive bar graffiti. You knew that theater kids were hanging out in that bar, that they're writing on the walls about dress rehearsals. You know, it's probably the guy who owned the bar goes in there, what the hell? It can't even get normal graffiti in here.
One of my favorites was at the Pizza Hut on Bay Road. I actually was sitting on the toilet, and I had to lean all the way over to read this. And when I could finally see what it said, "You are now sitting at a 45-degree angle." I lost it because I was exactly at a 45-degree angle to see what this said. I think I was in 6th grade when I saw that. I mean, I had to have been young because I would not use a public toilet like that now. But yeah, I was in 6th, 7th grade and I saw that and I laughed so hard. You know that's impressive graffiti when you're remembering this almost 30, 35 years later, you know?
Not only that, that's why you got all A's in geometry.
Exactly. Another topic we were going to cover, and again, it just seemed short-lived, which is hard, again, when you do such a niche topic. Sequels to Short Circuit.
Yeah.
And there's only Short Circuit 2.
Right. We couldn't find much information on any planned ones, any scripts that were rejected or anything like that. There just wasn't anything out there.
And see, I guess the biggest problem I had with it is why wasn't Steve Guttenberg in it?
Of course, that's often the problem you've had with a lot of movies. I mean, you and I have gone to movies and you're like, why wasn't Steve Guttenberg in this?
I want him in everything. So those were just a few ideas we had for maybe doing a podcast, and that's when we just decided we would talk about everything.
Right. So here we are. We're back, and we're talking about everything.
Yeah. So would this be considered a reboot, do you think? Are we rebooting our podcast?
I guess so, because it's not really a remake. We're not going to go back and do the first 10 episodes all over again.
No.
We're trying to do something new. We might end up repeating some things we said in earlier episodes occasionally, but that's because, we're getting old and we start repeating ourselves.
Right.
But no, this bothers me because I saw somebody on Facebook the other day refer to the Lion King reboot. Like, no, the Lion King, that was a remake. They remade the original movie.
Exactly.
They didn't no, a series like Roseanne, they did a reboot, or Murphy Brown, they attempted a reboot.
Right.
So yeah, we're rebooting just with the same cast and just a few years later, and here we are.
I like to think that we're actually reinvigorated, is what we are. We've got our energy back, and so we're ready to reboot.
Well, hey,
this thing.
when you've been Dwight Eisenhower for a few years, you got nothing but energy.
So either way, if we're a reboot, a remake, a reimagining, a reinvigoration, whatever, we've got plenty of time to figure it out during this pandemic, because we got nothing but time now. And now that the rest of the world has nothing but time, all they're doing is jamming up my bike paths, Matt. It's like New Year's resolution day out there. It's like the gym 2 weeks after the new year. It's jammed up with people who've never exercised in their lives.
Right.
There's dogs out on this bike path who've never been out of the backyard, have no idea how to behave.
I know. I've noticed that in my area too. The governor has said, go out, do recreation. Okay, I'm going to go out and exercise. Go out, and I cannot get anywhere near 6 feet away from people because they're just jamming up everything. They're everywhere. They're all over the place, and it's like, come on, people. This is Michigan. Don't you have a TV show to watch?
I know. When did everybody decide they were going to walk? It's like they've been given permission to sit on the couch for 2 months, and they're like, no, I'm walking. Get out of here. You don't belong out here. You're not even doing it right. Like, how do people not know how to walk right? They're like, and here's the thing now too. How's this virus transmitted? Through respiratory droplets. So now everybody I pass has to go, hi. The people on bike paths right now are like 2-year-olds who just learned their first word. Hi. Shut up. Yeah. You're breathing germs into the air. Stop it. Matt, I'm not even kidding you. I saw a guy on the bike trail walking the other day wearing a deer stalker cap like Sherlock Holmes. This guy thinks it's the 1800s. He looks so lost. It's like...
Watson, I'm going to solve the mystery of this virus.
He doesn't even know what century it is. He's going to get out on the bike path. The other problem I have...
Solve the mystery of what's in nature.
Oh, speaking of nature, so the DNR here in Michigan has a guide, Social Distancing Michigan Wildlife Guide. It's how you can visualize 6 feet of distance. So, apparently the wingspan of a bald eagle is 6 feet.
So they have a picture of a bald eagle's wingspan
yes.
in this guide, okay,
yep.
for illustration.
Yep. Also, moose antlers are 6 feet across.
Never seen a moose.
Because that's really easy to picture. I've never in my life been trying to gauge distance and said, how many moose antlers away do you think that pickup truck is? They've got black bear on here. Mm-hmm. And the one that cracks me up the most, they've got a sturgeon on here. Because I'm always carrying a sturgeon around, whether there's a pandemic or not. They're just so useful for all the projects I do around the house.
45 chipmunks long, and you should be safe.
Another thing that's kind of got me laughing right now during this pandemic is the pizza commercials. Mm-hmm. Have you seen these where they're talking about the pizza comes straight out of the oven at 450 degrees right into the box and is not touched by human hands until it gets to you? Who was touching my pizzas before the pandemic? Who was pulling a 450-degree pizza out of the oven and just jabbing their fingers in it? I don't know what, tasting for accuracy? Like, that's a good pizza. Let's get that to Eric after we touch it a little more. Who was manhandling my pizzas, Matt?
I don't know, but he sounds like a stereotype.
Well, Papa John's and Little Caesars and Hungry Howie's, all of them are touting this like it's the best thing in the world. Like, our pizzas are not touched by human hand. They're not looked upon by the human eye. Nobody smells, touches, or tastes your pizza till it's in your kitchen. This pizza is for you only. It's a James Bond pizza for my eyes only. Anyway, just a couple of funny little things in this pandemic. I hope everybody's staying safe out there, but you still got to find the funny, Matt.
Yeah, that's true. And speaking of funny and finding it, we've been off for 3 years. There's been a lot of news that we have to catch up on. And I'm not talking about pandemic news. I'm just talking about news that's happened in the last 3 years that we really need to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a few stories here. The first one was from last summer from the Alpena News in Alpena, Michigan. The headline, "Visiting Artist Impressed with What Alpena Has to Offer." So it starts out saying, when Alpena brings in artists from outside the area, residents here benefit from meeting them and viewing their work. The artists benefit from the exposure, and the community benefits from the commerce. Everybody benefits, and everybody's there with blessings all around.
Everybody wins.
Yes. And many of these artists are so impressed with this town and all it has to offer that they start planning their next visit right away. End paragraph.
They spend their whole trip on the internet planning to come back.
So basically, we know where this is going because that's where the first paragraph ends. So basically, this story is going to be, an artist came here and he might come back.
And that's exactly what it says. Artist Mark Hoxima had never been to Alpena before, but he will definitely be back. Take it from Mark. It's a good place to go.
I like the next quote. He says, quote, "This is my first time in Alpena, and I like it a lot. I'm coming back for various reasons."
Wow, tell us about Alpena. There's various things that are amazing about it. They're so varied and vague. Oh, interesting.
What are your reasons for coming back? Various.
That's like if given a survey, how did you hear about Alpena? And he marks other.
This is news, Eric.
I know.
Somebody said, stop the presses. Go out and find if that artist is going to come back.
Somebody had to write this. Here's another quote. "I'm not a scuba diver, but I've always snorkeled and stuff like that." And then I love this. He said on June 15th. Like, let's cite that. Get that down. When did he say that?
Write that, because he might change his mind by the 17th.
In fact, tomorrow we're going to try to snorkel a wreck or two, and I'm going to try to get some shots. We'll see what the day's like. I'm pretty excited. How excited? Pretty excited.
Yep.
My interest is piqued reasonably.
He goes on to say, "We had a blast last night. We went to the talk here in the theater about women around 1800 going to war dressed up like men. And then we went to the cabaret show at Thunder Bay Theater. Then we went to Mango's for dinner and some tequila. And then we went to Latitudes. We maxed it out pretty well," he said with a laugh.
We maxed it out? He borrow some slang from 1983?
Or he's talking about his credit card. Boy, this place is pricey.
They went to the theater, apparently to see a play about women around 1800 going to war dressed up like men. Then we went to the cabaret show, where the women took off the outfits they had, that they were dressed up like men. It was interesting.
A few lines later, to sum up his impression of Alpena, Hoxima said, "It's awesome."
I like how it ends. Kite surfing really takes up a lot of my life. It's such a random thing. It's like nobody asked you about that. Nobody said a word about what you're a photographer who thinks Alpena is awesome, and he had to get that in there. Kite surfing really takes up a lot of my life too. Thanks, Mark. No, you got to get that in the article. Well, we will. We'll get that in there. Oh boy.
So now here's a story from the Saginaw paper, and it concerns something we're all concerned about this year, with it being election year, an actual election. The headline says, Saginaw Township man running for State House in 2020 says he's a government psychic.
Okay, I'm interested.
So this man, Kevin Seaman, quote, makes a variety of claims about working for the federal government as an agent and a psychic. I like that they put a variety of claims. That's like saying you're coming back for various reasons.
It is.
Come on, reporter, don't hold out on us. Tell us what the variety of claims were. I mean, you mentioned it's a psychic thing, but what else? What were the other claims, you know?
Well, and the word claim itself, doesn't claim just always sound like wishy-washy, you know? Like, well, he's claiming I encroached on his property. You know, like claiming always, it gets this like, kind of tone to it, you know? So to say...
So you're saying they should factually say he is a government psychic.
Right. But just say he claims, I'm already picturing claims in air quotes. Seaman makes a variety of claims.
Well, in a written statement, Seaman said, quote, in the last election, I wasn't allowed to use my military title, as I am Senior Commander Commando Legionnaire Kevin Christopher Seaman of the United States Military in Saginaw, Michigan. I am also Federal Agent White Knight 196. James Bond is 007. I'm 196. I am a real-life government psychic.
Okay, I take it back. Go ahead and put claims in air quotes. They've got it right. These are definitely, quote, claims.
When asked about his statement, Seaman said he was, quote, trying to come out in the open about what I do.
Because normally, Senior Commander Commando Legionnaires, Federal White Knights, operate in secrecy.
Well, and especially he's telling us his special agent number and everything. You'd think that might get him in trouble with his
I know.
agency.
James Bond might tell people he runs into who he is, but he doesn't go to the newspaper.
Of course, James Bond never ran for state representative either. So
that we know of.
No. That would make a great film.
Because he would have done that in England.
That's true.
He couldn't do it here. He wasn't born here.
Well,
he
became
couldn't
an American
be president.
citizen.
Don't fact check me, Matt. Don't fact check me like that. I know what I'm talking about. Oh.
James Bond could run for state representative if he was an American citizen.
Yes.
So, anyway.
Well, I like this one. Seaman said his ideas to create jobs in the state include creating an alliance with neighboring states like Indiana and Ohio. Creating an alliance? The language in this article makes this all seem like science fiction, which it is.
Well, if Commando Legionnaire Kevin Seaman can't create an alliance with Ohio and Indiana, I don't know if anybody can.
I know. What does that even mean? Like, create an alliance? We're already the United States.
We're going to take on Kentucky, Virginia, and West Virginia.
Here's the thing.
We're going to try and out-psychic them so good.
Here's what I think sums this article up the best, though. Saginaw Township man running for state house in 2020 says he's a government psychic. The fact that he's a government psychic, this headline should actually be Saginaw Township man running for state house in 2020 says he's a government psychic and suspends his campaign because he sees he's not going to win.
Well, you don't know that.
But he does. He knew when he signed up.
Well, he ran once before and he lost, so it says he ran. What year was this that he ran? 2016 he ran and lost.
So he's got to be well prepared for another loss. Well, good luck, Kevin. I'll be looking for your name on the ballot this November, and hopefully I don't vote for you.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, this has been a lot of fun.
It has. I don't think I've had this much fun since 2017.
And I haven't either, at least none that I recorded this way.
Or that you probably can remember.
Oh, man. No, this was a good time. This is a good one. This is a good way to break the saddle in and jump back on that horse. Well, yeah, jump back on the horse.
Boy, I'm sitting in a chair. Do I feel like an idiot?
I've been doing mine from a horse.
Man, what a life you lead.
Yeah.
Well, folks, be sure to like us on Facebook. Be sure to find us on Podbean. Be sure to tell your friends about the podcast.
Yes, tell your friends. Tell your enemies.
Don't tell our enemies, though.
No, we're doing a great job of dodging those people.
Well, maybe you are because you're on a horse.
It's a lot easier, I'll tell you that. So, for everything, anything, and nothing really, I'm Eric Walensky.
And I'm Matthew Maynard.
And we'll see you folks next week.
Tell me why I had to go. Why don't you tell me why it just ain't so? Why don't you tell me why it hurts so bad? Why don't you tell me why you're not sad?
Well, that was pretty good.
Don't forget your laptop.